Chapter 19. Exams. Legion. Exams. Only through fire is a strong sword forged. VOD Local Comm Center, 0935. Breaking a whole unit. Fire at will. Squad 2, pick your target. There's too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody, cover me. I've got 2 enemies on my tail. We gotta hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements? A few days earlier, with the week coming to a close, the students had been studying hard. Izuku had been pushing some of the less academically inclined students, with Momo and Tinya also providing help with tutoring sessions. Although they couldn't really practice for the practical, they'd been training diligently as well, with some of the VOD providing training aids for anybody who wished it. Once again, some disparity had been noticed in the class dynamic, especially with Izuku's group, as more often than not, they'd been practicing with specific clones in particular. Momo had been sparring constantly with 3636, Yuga with Fordo, and Kyoko with Cut-Up, with the 6 switching partners. Tinya had been working on his speed and maneuverability, working on making extremely sharp turns by dodging blaster fire. Ochako was currently working on her stamina by increasing the weight she could lift, and even did some experimenting. Oddly enough, when she applied her power to the speeder bike, it made it fall to the ground. But that was something to delve into another day. Izuku was currently working on his swordsmanship in unison with One for All, his connection growing stronger and stronger by the day. Hikage had been extremely helpful, however, he did need to rest for a good time after a session to not strain his body since it required a high level of power to maintain the connection. Unfortunately, one downside he found was that he had to use low levels of power to practice his swordsmanship, since any blade would be crushed under even the lightest grip on the higher ends of his power level. Hopefully, he would be able to find an adequate alternative soon, as even the support course girl was having trouble making something sturdy enough, much to her frustration. Power Loader had thanked him, however, because of her current project, she couldn't focus on other projects that were likely to blow up. Apparently, it was the most peace he'd had all year. So far, the rumor was that the exam would be robots, but both the VOD and him knew the truth, although he'd been thoroughly warned not to reveal anything to his classmates and friends. He struggled to see the full reasons why, but understood that with the recent rise of villain activity, it was important to accelerate their growth. As Izuku ate his lunch, Hikage gave him a small warning, and he ducked his head before driving his elbow back. Hearing a grunt, he turned to the side and stared at Monoma, who was currently glaring at him while trying to catch his breath. "Man, you just love to push buttons, don't you?" "Thanks, Hikage." "Che, I saw your little press conference. Quite the attention hoarder, aren't you? Just like the sports festival and that fight with Stain. Can't help but want the glory, right? You see, Monoma, it's Osik like this that led to you getting Oklahoma smashed into next year." "Ke. Lucky shot." Monoma griped as Izuku shook his head. You know, if anything, you should be worried about the rest of us getting caught up in your class business before we become victims too, as if a god of pestilence placed a curse scare." Monoma grunted as Kendo chopped his neck. "Not funny, Monoma," Kendo said as she set down his lunch after he collapsed. The USJ involved a lot of deaths, and Stains had a personal effect on Class A. "Kendo," Izuku greeted, nodding at her. "Sorry about him, Midoriya. He's just, I don't even know at this point." Well, no harm done this time. At least he had the common sense not to mention, you know?" Izuku said as he returned to his meal. An awkward silence remained between them before Kendo tried to mend the bridge a bit. "I heard you guys mention the practicals for the finals, and I heard that it'll be combat against robots like the entrance exam." "Oh, really? How'd you find out?" Izuku said as he raised his brow, a part of him internally grinning in satisfaction. Aizawa was right. Logical ruses were fun. An upperclassman friend of mine told me. "It's kind of cheating, though." I wouldn't say so. After all, an important part of being a hero is gathering information," Izuku said as he sipped his drink, using all of his self-control to not break character. "You are correct, Izuku," Tinya said with a slight chop. "Information gathering is what made my brother's agency so efficient, combined with the extended psychic network." "Interesting," And how is your brother's agency? Your brother? Both are doing fine. The agency is getting back into gear with the help of my parents, and my brother has just started his new treatment, Tenya said, remembering to keep the exact details of the treatment under wraps. We hope that he responds well to it. Well, you saw how my dad was, and he's been responding well to the treatment, so your brother should be fine. Why? Monoma groaned. Why would you betray us, Kendo? We had the tactical advantage. This was our chance. Our chance to finally usurp Class Aerk. Honestly, why do I even bother with you? Kendo muttered as she dragged him away. She's like Class B's big sister, huh? She does give off that vibe. As his friends continued to talk during lunch, Izuku ate his lunch silently. A part of him felt guilty for hiding the truth from his friends, but in the end, he knew that it would help them in the long run, especially when dealing with unknowns as pros. It was kind of funny seeing Ishido and Kaminari celebrate so early. All they needed now, according to them, was help from Momo so that they could pass. There was a slight confrontation between him and Bakugo over his recent actions during class, but Izuku merely waved him off. At this point, he didn't know what he felt about Bakugo, but if any word could be used, apathy. Apathy would be closest to it at the moment. Bakugo challenged Todoroki as well before abruptly leaving the classroom, the others looking on and wondering whether his actions were out of impatience or hatred. Aizawa, who had been listening from behind the wall, merely sighed in annoyance. It seemed that Bakugo was doing worse than he thought. Nevertheless, time went on, and soon enough, study time was over and the class soon faced their 3 days of written exams. Fortunately, it seemed that everybody did well, with Kaminari commenting that he was able to, at the very least, not leave anything blank. That Thursday, they were finally able to take their practical exams, although all but one were surprised to see their teachers all together along with some of the VOD. All right, time to begin the practical. Aizawa began. As a reminder, you do have the capability to fail this exam, so if you want to make it to the summer camp, you better not screw this up. Why are there so many teachers? Midoriya, front and center. Izuku blinked. Wait, what? You heard me, Aizawa said. Izuku blinked again before nodding and heading over to their side. As explained earlier, Midoriya will not be participating in your final examination. His license exam will serve as a substitute for his practical. However, he was a participant of sorts. Aizawa then gestured to the class. I'm sure that you all did information gathering, so you know what to expect, right? That's right. We're fighting robots. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be sick. Kaminari and Ishido's celebration was soon cut short, however, as Nizu popped out of Aizawa's scarf with a maniacal laugh. Pop. Too bad. For various reasons, the exams will be far different this time. Principal Nizu? Various reasons? Different? Nizu chuckled as he climbed down Aizawa's body. Yes. You see, from now on, we want to focus on your combat abilities and hero work by emphasizing teaching methods that are closer to actual fighting. Which is why instead of fighting robots as par for the course, you'll instead be fighting us. Nizu said with a grin as the students stared at them in horror, slight apathy, and pure excitement. Free guesses as to who was who. Commander? Nizu motioned towards Cody. Said Clone nodded and walked forward 2 steps and grabbed the students' attention. All right then, as you all know, we've been working hard so that we could help you all grow, which is why the VOD will also be participating in the final exams. Oh, come on. Oh dear. Relax. It won't too bad. I don't like how you paused between that. Anyway, the point of this practical exam is to simulate a live exercise of a hero situation. You'll be split off into pairs of 2, with one group being left as a trio. You'll be facing the teachers in a combat situation using the different training grounds. Us clones won't be direct participants, but we'll be providing some assistance in the background. This will be treated as a live simulation, your 2 main goals either being escape or capture. The clone then turned his head to Nizu, who nodded to him to continue. Cody sighed, knowing that Nizu wanted to help him develop his leadership skills, but he did feel that this was something a lot more suited for an actual teacher. Now, we understand that the scales are extremely unbalanced. You're dealing with pros who have years, and in one case, decades, of experience. which is why inhibitor restraints have been applied to them to even the odds. Che, you're giving us a handicap? Bakugo asked in fury and disgust, affronted by the notion. Yes, now shut up and let me finish. You dash. Bakugo. Aizawa challenged, eyes glowing. The boy simply glared and turned his head. Anyway, again, your objectives are to escape, and in a real-world situation, this would be to find reinforcements, or to defeat the villain by capturing them with special cuffs that will be distributed to you. Now, Cody said as he grabbed a list. For the pairings. Many of the class gulped in worry. Sure, they'd worked together recently, but a lot of them, barring the increasingly notorious Midoriya group, didn't have as deep of a bond as they appear to have. Aoyama and Uraraka. The two friends nodded and grinned at each other, sharing a quick fist bump. Sato and Kirishima. Although they didn't know each other that well, the two brutes nodded at each other, Kirishima especially happy to have someone as manly as him to fight alongside. Ashido and Kaminari. Although the two were friends, they groaned in disappointment, knowing that since they were the bottom two of the class, they didn't have the best chance of success. Mineta and Zero. The two nodded at each other, although Mineta was desperately hoping to get Midnight as their opponent for very obvious reasons. Tokoyami and Azui. Although they both had animal-based quirks, the two didn't know each other all that well, so you immediately asked him to call her by her name though, to make things easier. She had a very nice meeting with Dark Shadow, Shoji and Hagakure. The silent giant nodded at the invisible girl next to him who waved excitedly with her body, hoping that they would pass. Ida and Ojiro. Tenya shook his classmate's hand and eagerly awaited the challenge. Jairu and Koda. Kyoka nodded to the shy boy, who signed some things at her. Fortunately, she was able to sign back. And finally, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu. Bakugo immediately glared at the two of them in disdain, telling them to not hold him back. Todoroki looked at him in annoyance, while Momo looked heavenward and prayed that she be able to handle this. All right then, head on over to the central building so that we can begin the simulation. As they walked over, Izuku's friends came up to him with mock betrayal in their eyes. Izuku, why would you do this to us? To be honest, I thought it'd be funny. Izuku. Uraraka and Aoyama. Welcome, Uravity, and now you are. Fordo greeted them as they entered their room. Hello, Fordo.
Bonjour, mon ami.
We'll have to save the pleasantries until after your newest mission. Blinking slightly at the difference in tone, they both realized that they were in a simulation and had to take things seriously. All right, lay it on us, Fordo. Very well. We've recently had a jailbreak occur in one of our high-security prisons. Only one convict managed to escape, the notorious Sagittarius A-starred. The one with the black hole quirk, correct? The very same. Fortunately, her power is still restricted, only at half her normal strength, but that is not an excuse to take her lightly. She is still very much deadly. As it is, we've managed to section her off in this part of the city, Fordo explained as he pointed at a map of the training area they were going to use. We don't have an exact location on her, but at the very least she's trapped. Your mission is to assess the situation and either subdue her or, barring that, escape so that you can relay the situation and we can send in reinforcements. Personally, Fordo continued as he took off his helmet and winked at them. I'm rooting for the both of you to capture this villain successfully so that we can all go home. Ochako and Yuga smiled at him. Well then, when do we start? In 15 minutes, unfortunately, that's all we can give you. And we can only hold her for 30 minutes after that. Understood, thank you, Fordo. Thank you, my friend. We will do our best to apprehend the villain. To make a long story short, about 15 minutes into the fight, the two were now holding tightly onto a railing as Sagittarius A** tried sucking them in with her quirk. This is bad. Desol, my friend. I thought that she wouldn't be able to absorb my lasers. Black holes suck in everything, Yuga, including light. How was I supposed to know? We literally talked about it during our planning phase. Oops. Yuga grimaced as he adjusted his grip. We need to think up of something. I don't plan on losing today. Ochako shouted over the roaring winds. I don't know what to do. What would Fordo or Izuku do? Yuga asked as his grip started to slip again. I don't know. Probably something stupidly crazy. She yelled back. I mean, this is the same guy that ran towards a zero-pointer. Meeting each other's eyes, they paused and blinked at the same time before turning toward their opponent in unison. Yuga?
Oui.
She tapped his shoulder, rendering him weightless. You go high, I'll go low. Yuga nodded, and with a small countdown they both let go. With a small blast of his naval laser, he went high as Ochako brought her hands together, releasing him from her hold. Sagittarius' attention was captured by Yuga and her quirk instinctively shut off. Ochako then tackled her to the ground, securing one arm while Yuga landed and secured the other. With a click, the handcuffs were securely placed on her arm and the exercise ended. Team Uraraka and Aoyama have passed. Oya! Izuku shouted in excitement, startling Recovery Girl who was watching for injuries. Damn it, boy. Izuku could only laugh. Sato and Kirishima. All right, boys, looks like you're up against Mixmaster. He's got control of this part of the city, but we've managed to cordon him off. Thayer said as he pointed at a screen. Your job is simple, either capture or gather enough information so that you can retreat and we can send in reinforcements. Ain't no retreating for us, we're gonna do this the manly way. Kirishima excitedly exclaimed. Sato was a bit unsure but was caught up in Kirishima's enthusiasm and the two began to plan. Thayer could only wish them luck. Unfortunately, they needed a lot more than luck as Mixmaster put in so many walls in front of them that Kirishima collapsed from exhaustion and Sato ended up losing his mind from all the sugar. The two were soon enough captured by Mixmaster, who merely shook his head in disappointment. Kirishima and Sato failed. So unmanly.
Ugh.
Ashido and Kaminari. Hello there, Pinky and Chargebolt. I'll be your debriefer for today's mission, Cody said as he welcomed them into a room with a wave of his arm. Hi there.
Yo.
All right, you two, let's get down to business dash. To defeat the Huns, Kaminari sang, only for both Ashido and Cody to stare at him blankly, the clone shaking his head. Sorry, pre-quirk reference, he said sheepishly. All right, ignoring that then. You two are coming up against Mastermind, a notorious criminal who just broke out of prison, he said as a picture of Nizu popped up, scaring the both of them down to their core. Oh, now I see why they had Cody brief us. Why'd they have to put the two dumbest people in the class against one of the smartest beings on the planet? Fortunately, we've managed to cordon him off in this industrial section near a large construction site. We don't know his exact location, but hopefully you can figure things out. You'll have 15 minutes to prepare and 30 minutes to capture him, or if necessary, escape with the information you acquire so that we can send in reinforcements. Kaminari and Ashido gulped before looking things over. Okay, we can do this, right, Kaminari? She asked only to find him trembling in fear. We're so screwed. Interestingly enough, what happened surprised everybody. Let's wind back a bit. Niza had, from his position inside a crane, used his quirk high specs to make the calculations necessary to cause chain reactions that made everything crash right on top of them. Ashido and Kaminari, who were extremely panicking, were running away as far and as fast as they could while Mastermind cackled mindlessly from his throne. Finally, they managed a brief respite by doubling back to where the carnage was. Okay, we're dealing with Nizu, one of the smartest beings alive. We're dumbass. I can shoot acid and you can make lightning. What can we do? Ashido asked Kaminari, who was bent over his knees and breathing heavily. I don't know. Arg, think. What would Yamamoto or Midoriya do against Nizu? She said to herself before her eyes widened as she recalled the sports festival and how Yamamoto and Midoriya figured out the clues for the wall. Midoriya. Yeah. You and Django knew Nizu the best. If he made a pattern or a trap, what would he do? If he had unlimited freedom, he'd make sure to close all exits, but since this is a competition, he'd leave at least one way free. It'd be stupid tricky to find though. I can't remember how many times Django used to complain about it when we played his little games. Okay, he's a teacher, and the entire point of this exam is to pass, so he doesn't have unlimited freedom. That means that there's at least one way out. She took a deep breath and looked around. noticing the rubble around them and how things were still crashing, but from farther away. Wait a minute, she thought as she saw another set of buildings become dominoes. Following the trail, she exclaimed in shock and happiness at seeing the crane. Look, it's the crane, and it's right by the exit. Okay, but there's no way to get there. That means that the only way across is going through the crane. Ishido whispered. Ah crap. Come on, looks like we've got no other choice. Ishido took the lead and led them towards the crane, and only now was the apparent senseless destruction making any sense at all. He's deliberately leaving a path for us. He wants us to meet him. Mastermind really is a good villain name for Principal Nizu. I'm glad he's not one for real. Kaminari said with a shudder. Come on, we don't have much time. It took a few minutes, but they finally made it to a fork in the road that would either lead them straight to the crane or to the exit. I think that we should head towards him, Ishido said as Kaminari started to make his way towards the exit. This is too easy. What are you talking about? We're right here. We just have to dash. Boom! The walls exploded, separating the both of them and causing rubble to crash around them. Kaminari! Ishido! He yelled, coughing out dust. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine, but I'm stuck. Hold on, I'll melt you out.
No.
Keep going towards Nizu. I'll see if I can crawl out towards the exit. We don't have a lot of time. Ishido grit her teeth but nodded. All right, I'll be back for you soon. Turning back, she made her way down the road to where the crane was and noticed that it was rearing back for a final strike. With startling agility, she dodged the wrecking ball, while also launching acid at it. I can't just aim for the ball. I'll waste all my time. I have to go for the building. Quickly making her way towards it, she started spreading as much acid as she could, weakening the supports and causing the building to groan as it began to collapse under its weight. Ishido was forced to move quickly to avoid being crushed by the rubble and had to wait for the dust to clear up. Panting heavily from all the physical exertion, her attention was caught off guard by the sound of clapping next to her. Turning, she saw Princey Mastermind clapping his paws, his suit practically pristine as he held a teacup with his tail. Well done, Pinky. Well done, indeed. It seems that you are capable of using that mind of yours. Mastermind. She grit out while preparing herself for a final battle. Now, there'll be no need for that. After all, you passed my test, he said as he stopped clapping and grabbed the teacup before taking a sip. Ah, just wonderful, he said, enjoying the tea as Ishido looked at him in confusion. Finishing another sip, he looked at her with amusement. I surrender. What? She asked in shock and confusion. You heard me. I surrender. I currently have no options before me, and I created this test with the intention of having at least one path to victory. You took the time to actually think, make a plan, recognize patterns. Such critical thinking should be rewarded. But why? Because first and foremost, I am an educator, Miss Ishido. I want you to learn, but what is the point of learning if nothing is gained from it? Therefore, I surrender. Do bear in mind, however, that future villains will not be so gracious. Nizu said as Ishido began to tentatively walk forward and took out the handcuffs. Still wary for one final trap, she nonetheless put them on him, and soon enough the horn blared. Team Ishido and Kaminari have passed. Wow, I did it, Mina said as she fell to her knees from exhaustion and the emotions currently running through her. Indeed, Ms. Ishido, Nizu said before noticing her begin to slightly tear up, her hands coming up to wipe them away. Ms. Ishido? Sorry, it's just that, you're you and I never thought I'd ever be smart enough to dash. She cut herself off with a cough and gulped as she tried to keep her emotions in check, taking deep breaths to center herself. Nizu set down his teacup and put a comforting paw on her shoulder. You are in UA, Ms. Ishido, one of the finest hero academies in the world. You earned your place here, and besides, the entire point of a school is to help you learn. You've made it this far out of your own merit, and whatever shortcomings you may have, you'll improve upon them. Thank you. Come now then, let us go, Nizu said as Ishido got back up to her feet, and they headed to the exit via another path that Nizu left for himself. Ishido let herself feel pride for her actions. She'd made it this far after all, and she was becoming better by the day. Jiru and Koda. All right then, Beslar and Anima. Looks like you guys are up against Soundwave. Cut Up said as he debriefed them. Your mission is simple, either capture or escape. I'm going to warn you already that you should use every tool at your disposal to get through this. Good luck to you both. Thanks, Cut Up. We'll see you soon. Koda merely nodded. Later on, after their match ended and as Jiru looked towards Koda, who'd gone against his own fears to win, she smiled in gratitude. Softly tapping his shoulder to catch his attention, she began to sign to him. You were very brave. Really? She nodded and smiled widely at him. The bravest. Koda smiled softly before turning his head slightly, his hands moving to make words, but the motions were slightly aborted. Something wrong? She asked. Koda sighed before facing her fully. You were friends with Django, right? Kyoka blinked before nodding. At the USJ, the rats, they told me what happened. They could feel Midoriya's emotions when the pillar erupted. Oh, I'm sorry. It's no problem. It's just that, do you think he was afraid? I'm not sure if I'm the best person to talk about this, but, yeah, I think anybody would have been afraid. I guess that's part of what made Django so special, his courage. I know that I'm afraid of a lot of things, but I hope that I can be brave like him. Kyoka smiled at him. I think you're well on your way, Koda. Azui and Tokoyami. All right then, Froppy, Tsukuyami. Looks like you're up against the Wraith. You guys have seen the others, so you know the drill, capture or escape with intel so that we can send in reinforcements. Echo said as he passed them the cuffs. We shall do our best. May the dark blind our enemy. Ribbit. Fortunately for the duo, their fight was actually one of the least eventful. Although Tsukuyami and Froppy had some slight differences, they were able to work extremely well together. Even when the Wraith pulled out his trump card and created a large clone to trap them, she used the full power of her quirk to reveal her own trump card and, thanks to the aid of Dark Shadow, was able to place the cuffs on their opponent, finishing the match for them. Izuku smiled in relief. It seemed that the majority of his classmates would pass. He was especially proud of Ishido and Koda, who'd overcome their shortcomings. Turning around as he heard the door open, he opened his arms widely so that Yuga and Ochako could hug him. I'm so proud of the both of you, though I admit, you had me worried for a moment there. We Mon-Ami, we were worried ourselves, but then we thought, what would you do? Ochako slightly interrupted, holding onto his hands. Izuku slightly gulped and a small flush appeared on his skin, but he was nonetheless pleased. I'm glad that I was able to inspire you towards victory, he said with a soft smile as he then turned towards Yuga and placed a hand on his shoulder. To the both of you. Turning back towards the screen, he eagerly awaited to see what the rest of his class would do. His friends were standing close by. Looks like Tenya and Ojiro are doing pretty well. Who are they fighting against? Ochako asked. Power Loader, or in this case, Devastator. Okay, I have to ask, whose idea was it to give the teachers villain names? Surprisingly enough, it was Cody. He said it was so that they could add an extra sense of realism. The teachers were all for it. I think they secretly wanted to know what it was like. That wouldn't surprise me. They watched as Tenya did an extremely turbulent spin that sent Ojiro rocketing towards the exit, securing them the victory. All three of them cheered for their friend as more and more of the students came back in. Oh look, the perv managed to pass. Kyoka said with a grimace as they observed Mineta walking out of the gate with Zero on his back, leaving behind Midnight, or in this case Twilight, behind. You know, I'm honestly surprised that Midnight didn't go for a more risque name. Apparently she wanted to go for Dominatrix, but Bly shut her down. Yuga snorted, much to his own embarrassment, but continued. Desol Mon-Ami, but you must admit that it is most amusing how Bly has, how should one say, put Midnight on a leash? Recovery Girl snarked, causing the group to slightly giggle. Well, she's not wrong, Fordo chuckled as he entered the room. Bly's been on Midnight's case a lot recently. Present Mick's been ragging her about it a lot. Asked if she was finally settling down. You should have heard the screeching that came from the teacher's lounge that day. I am the R-rated hero, Midnight. I am not settling down for anybody. I don't know. Seems to me like Bly's got the naughty kitty on a tight leash. Come here, you overgrown cockatoo. I'll show you a tight leash. Ahaha, mercy. Fordo chuckled once more. Really funny stuff. Oh, look. Kyoka pointed towards the screen where Tentacle and Invisible Girl were fighting against Deadshot. They also witnessed the incident that led to her giving the absolute most brutal slap they'd ever seen. Damn. You know, it really doesn't make sense for her to be naked. Isn't there anything at all that could be done? Izuku hummed as he placed his fingers on his chin in a classic thinking pose. You know, my quirk's been pretty good to adapting to situations. Maybe we can figure out something to help her out. Cloaking technology? At the very least, I can try and get her some armor, and we can go to the support studio to apply some kind of cloaking tech. Or perhaps, mumble. The group around him slightly backed away in worry at seeing him dive so deep into a rabbit hole, but for the most part were content on letting him figure things out. Snap. Well, at the very least we can get her some protection, Izuku said with a grin. Elsewhere, Mineta felt a great disturbance around him, as if the fantasies of millions of future hero fans were suddenly silenced. Izuku looked around to see his friends staring at him awkwardly, and he sheepishly grinned. Ah, I mumbled, didn't I? Sorry guys, I haven't done that since before Jang Dash. Hey, Ochako said as she placed her hand on his shoulder. It's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own quirks. It's just a part of you, okay? Izuku opened his mouth, as if trying to say something in reply, but closed it once more and merely smiled softly at her. Okay, thanks. Of course. Ochako replied as they faced the screen once more. Yuga slyly looked behind them and his eyes widened in glee. He then reached out his arm and poked Kyoka's shoulder. Turning towards him, she saw him motion for her to keep quiet before pointing down to where she saw their hands intertwined. Her own eyes widening, she looked up to see Yuga raise his eyebrows suggestively as he pointed towards them with a grin. Smothering a giggle herself, she shook her head, and they let them be since it was obvious that the two had no idea that it even happened in the first place. Here it comes. They heard Izuku grimly say as the final match of the day began. Yamamo, Todoroki, and Bakugo. They should be facing Aizawa, right? Ochako asked. Izuku hummed deeply and shook his head. If only. Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Bakugo. All right then. Listen up, Kriati, Shoto, and Bakugo. 3636 said as he began the brief. We've recently had the impossible happen, a breakout from Tartarus, one of, if not the greatest villains to exist. Momo gulped in apprehension. Judging by the earlier matches she witnessed, she was sure that they were fighting Eraserhead. So why the hype? Behold, Doomsday. A picture of All Might appeared, shaking the three to their core. We're facing All Might. Let me be absolutely clear on this. This will be your toughest fight yet. Goal remains the same, however. Capture if possible or retreat with the information you'll have gathered so that we can send in reinforcements. Che, as if I'd run away. Bakugo said as he left the room. 3636 sighed in annoyance, but continued. You have 15 minutes to prepare. We've managed to limit him to this section of the city and already did an evacuation, so you don't have to worry about civilian interference. But you'll only have 30 minutes once inside. Good luck, and remember, there is no shame in retreating to fight another day. Momo nodded and looked at Todoroki, who grimaced before nodding as well. Then good luck. If all goes well, I'll see you on the other side. Suffice to say that things didn't start off very well. Almost immediately an argument broke out between Bakugo and Todoroki, the former absolutely refusing to do anything but face All Might, arrogantly stating that he would defeat him. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu tried to get him to see reason, but it was impossible. Ugh, I see now why Izuku dislikes him so much. Todoroki merely grunted. Then everything went black. Momo coughed as she blearily opened her eyes. Turning to her right, she noticed Todoroki on his hands and knees, coughing out dust as explosions riddled the air. Yaoyorozu, the plan has failed. I'm going in. Todoroki yelled as he then rose to his feet and ran towards the battle. She soon heard the telltale sound of air crackling as ice shot forward towards All Might only for it to be smashed apart, the icy winds covering her half-naked form. Fire erupted from Todoroki's left only for a single clap to blast the air back, thankfully, warming her up a bit. Damn it, this is dash. Momo's mouth went dry as she began to feel her heart pounding in her ears, suddenly conscious of the deep, uncontrolled breaths she was taking. Her body shivering as fear took over her heart, but not fear of All Might, of herself. I can't do this. Slowly, the other noises around her. The explosions, the fire and ice, the sounds of cement tearing apart and hurricane-force winds shrieking past her. Slowly, they all disappear as her mind begins to collapse on itself, as she realizes the futility of her actions, of any possible effort. She feels alone. I feel useless here. 36. I don't feel like I belong, Momo said as she sat down from another training session with Iwabami. In reality, it was another prep for the stupid commercial. Well, truth be told, there's not much that you can actually do here, so I understand the useless part. Thank you for the comfort. 36. Momo said sarcastically. Well, that's what I'm here for. Come on, get up. Let's spar, he said as he grabbed his own staff. Truth be told, it was slightly infuriating. She trained for years how to use a bow, yet he took to it like a fish to water. None of that. Ack! Momo cried out as she hastily blocked. What was that for? You're doubting yourself again. Let me guess, it's cause of how fast I've picked this up, right? He asked before dodging a swing. I admit, that is partially the reason. Momo grunted as she blocked an attack. First things first, we've been training inside the mindscape for years too. Django managed to get us books and other stuff, so we weren't hurting for resources. Second, you're too flashy. What? She asked before being jabbed in the gut, while she was in the middle of a twirl. Ow! She groaned after falling on her rear. See what I mean? I admit, you know how to spar, but fighting is something different. In a fight, all those flashy moves just give the opponent an opening to take you out. 36 approached and extended his hand. Taking it, she let him pull her up. Other than that, you're good, really good. So there's no need to doubt yourself on that front. But dash. You're smart too, one of the smartest people I know. One of the smartest people Izuka knows, and that's including Nizu. Momo grimaced and 36 continued to lean on his staff. What's wrong? If I was so smart, I would have seen Iwabami's offer for what it is. I wouldn't be stuck here being a dress-up doll for some stupid commercial. That's one of the reasons why I left home in the first place to become a hero. Yet here I am, back to being a doll, Momo said in frustration, hot tears of embarrassment and shame poking at the corner of her eyes. Something wrong at home? No, don't get me wrong. I love my parents and they love me. They've so far supported me in my desire to become a hero, but I'm also their only child and a girl at that. So, I was extremely sheltered as a child, and now that I look back, I see that it held me back by a lot. She then sat down on a bench with a huff. I just feel incapable because of my lack of experience. 36 hummed before sitting down next to her. As far as I see it, not much experience you could have got. You're still a kid. In a sense we all are, even us clones. Even though we may act older due to our experience at the USJ, we're still Izuka's age. Besides, you're in a school. You're meant to get experience now. As for the Iwabami thing, well, you're smart, but that doesn't mean that you're wise. What? Wisdom is having the smarts and knowing when to apply it, and well, at our age, we don't know how, but that's why we're here, to learn. So yes, you made a mistake. Big whoop, we all have. Especially Izuku. 36 trailed off as he recalled some things but put them aside. But that's why we're here, to learn and get better. He then stood up and grabbed his staff before motioning for Momo to get up and grab hers. Nodding, she stood and grabbed her staff before taking a stance. So remember, if you ever feel incapable, remember, you're here to learn, and besides you're smart, I'm sure you can figure out a way. Momo took a deep breath and swallowed, the action helping to center herself. Slowly, everything began to come back to her. The gravel underneath her hands and knees, the smell of smoke and caramel, the shouting and explosions, all of it was coming back to her. Taking another deep breath, she stood and began to move towards the side of a building. It was going bad. Bakugo tried again to fight Doomsday. only for the man to grab him and use him like a wrecking ball against Todoroki, with the latter being sent flying back and Bakugo being tossed away like a dirty rag. I must admit, heroes, you're quite the disappointment. Had you worked together, perhaps you could have given me some damage, but all you did was interrupt each other and cause problems. It's quite pathetic, Doomsday said as he walked down the street. I expected a better challenge, Bakugo and Shoto. I know, he said with a snap of his fingers. Please forgive me for this. I'm under orders too. Bring me Endeavor. At least he might pose a challenge even if he is getting on in years. The street became a lot chillier. Or better yet, someone else from your generation. I know. Bring me Mandalore. At least he's managed to actually do some good against villains. Bakugo exploded from his place on the ground. Anything better than this mockery of a display? Don't compare me to... They both growled. DKU. Him. An utterly enormous explosion erupted from where Doomsday was standing as fire and explosive power combined only for it to be washed away as Doomsday thrusted his palms, the resulting force blowing them away. That's enough of that. You had your chance. Now where's your partner? I know that Creati was sent here with you, Dash. He raised his hand and caught an arrow. Chuckling as he turned to where it came from, he saw Creati standing there with bow in hand. Really? Is that all you had? She smirked. Nope. Kaboom. The arrow exploded in his face, although the concussive force wasn't the problem but rather the obscene amounts of smoke and, surprisingly enough, tear gas that was now in his face. Doomsday coughed violently and leapt away, giving Momo enough time to grab Todoroki and Bakugo and drag them into an alley. All right, listen, I think I have a PL, Dash. I don't need anybody's plan. I'm going back out there, and I'm gonna beat All Might by Dash. Bakugo was cut off by Todoroki shoving him. Are you an idiot? Are you really that brain-dead? What did you just say? You heard me, you imbecile. We just got manhandled by All Might, 2-on-1, and you still want to go back out there, half-cocked? Victory is all that matters, and I don't need you to pass, Dash. The two fell into another argument, the alley filling with micro-explosions and chilling even more. Momo could only look at the two in disbelief as her eye began to twitch in annoyance. Finally, it all snapped. Bam! Will the both of you just shut up and stop arguing for 2 seconds so that I can speak? You little by Dash. No, you shut up, Bakugo Katsuki. I've had it up to here with your arrogant attitude and dismissal of everybody else's hard work. Newsflash, you Pomerian. You can't do everything by yourself. I'm telling you that I don't need you, any of you, to win this. And another thing, I swear if you hit me again, I'll dash. Wham! That's it. You want to play? I'll play. I'll beat you so badly that your mother will bleep, 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 bleep. I'm dash. Bleep. El orem ipsum, bleep, bleep, bleep. Avenivenium, bleep, 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 bleep. Titulaguf, bleep, 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 bleep. Hippopotamus, bleep, 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 bleep. Republican dash bleep, bleep. And Daniel Radcliffe dash bleep, 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 bleep. With a bucket of dash bleep, 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 bleep. And a castle far away where no one can hear you. Bleep, 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 bleep. Soup. Bleep, bleep, bleep. With a bucket of dash bleep, bleep. Mickey Mouse dash bleep, bleep. And a stick of dynamite dash bleep. Magical bleep, bleep, bleep. Alakazam. She panted heavily as the last dregs of fury left her body. Looking down, she could only see Bakugo and Todoroki looking at her in horrified awe. In the control room, Izuku and friends could only look at her with their mouths agape since the camera captured every word that came out of her mouth. Even All Might, who was nearby after recovering, could only gape in shock before he backed away, content on letting her deal with this. I'll just let them come to me. Momo then cleared her throat, a part of her dying in mortification but putting it off until after they were done. Now, will you get your head out of your ass and listen to me? Bakugo stared at her for a few seconds before grunting.
Fine.
Good, now listen. Here's what I need you two to do. Doomsday whistled without a care in the world, planting himself by the exit, He knew that his opponents would have to go through him to even have a chance of passing. He heard whistling and flicked a finger, causing the arrow that was heading for him to veer wildly of course. Now, Creati. You didn't think that that would work a second time, did you? He said, turning towards the girl who was now facing him. No, I just needed your attention for a few seconds. Doomsday noticed the ground rumbling below him and leapt away just as a pillar of ice erupted from below. Oh, they used the sewers? How clever. Over here. He heard and saw Bakugo on top of him, having been previously launched by the ice and hidden from Doomsday's view. Howitzer impact. Kaboom. Doomsday's body was sent rocketing towards the ground, although he'd managed to put his arms up in time to block. He grunted as he hit the ground and was surprised as smoke immediately began to surround him. Yaoyorozu? He heard a crack and looked up to see the ice pillar falling on top of him. Oh dear. The ice crashed on him with a roar, the resulting displacement of air pushing away the smoke. Now what? Todoroki said as he came up to her. Did you smell anything odd in the sewers? Momo asked. Yes, it smelled horrible down there, like rotten eggs. Mercaptan, that means methane. The ice then groaned as Doomsday effortlessly lifted it up and tossed it at them. Move. The two dodged out of the way as the ice crashed where they were beforehand. Momo grabbed her bow and shot more arrows in Doomsday's general direction. You'll have to work on your aim, Creati. D. Another explosion rocked the area as Bakugo landed before leaping off with another explosion. Soon after, a torrent of flame came racing down the streets, only to be redirected by a swing of Doomsday's fist. Todoroki and Bakugo kept Doomsday in place, this time working together with the results being far better. All right, that's the last one, Momo said as she grabbed a remote and closed the manhole that she sent a small drone into. Now, with a final attack, an enormous explosion erupted in the middle of the street, Doomsday merely tanking the damage. Ha 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 ha, now that's more like it, but you'll need more than that, heroes. The ground then began to shake and he stumbled slightly. Looking around, he saw the various arrows around him vibrating rapidly, the ground around them shaking and falling apart. Turning to Creati, he grinned. Clever girl. The ground collapsed and he fell through, although with minimal damage. Heh, these kids really are something else. He grinned as he stood up. Although, I don't know what they expected to do with a small fall like this. Now if it had been one of those huge sewer caverns, Bleg, what is that smell? With a grimace he covered his nose and looked around and only saw a bunch of pipes with a charge next to them. Oh dear. The resulting explosion took out the entire city block, the exposed methane having quickly spread due to the mini drone cutting through the pipes. As the fireball spread, the ground cracked even farther down the street and manholes popped out of their place due to the force exerted. Truly, it was a remarkable feat. Come on, let's move. Momo called out, but only Todoroki followed. I'm pressing the advantage. Damn it, Bakugo. Ignore him, come on. As they approached the exit, they heard another large explosion before something crashed in front of them. Crap. This isn't good. Doomsday grinned. His outfit singed and burned, but he was no worse for wear. In his hand was Bakugo's unconscious body, which he tossed unceremoniously onto the ground. I admit, you've certainly surprised me, but I think your journey ends here, heroes. Yaoyorozu go. I'll hold him, Guh. Momo gasped as she saw Todoroki folded over Doomsday's fist, the boy already unconscious. I have you now, Doomsday grinned as he approached her. So then, Creati, what shall you do? Let's hope this works. I will fight, she said as she created a bow staff and held it in front of her. Admirable, but foolish. In the blink of an eye, he was on top of her, and while she managed to swing, he easily caught the staff. No more tricks? Creati? Momo merely grinned, and the tip of the staff exploded. Damn it, not again. Doomsday easily waved away the smoke, the explosion of a far smaller magnitude. Is that it, Wa? Doomsday groaned as he fell to his knees, the ground cratering below him. Desflurane, in other words, an anesthetic. Meant for surgery, but in this case, my final resort. Momo said as she approached the fallen titan, who could barely think, let alone move. How sneaky, very proud. Thank you, sir, Momo said as she grabbed the handcuffs and placed them on him. Good work. All Might mumbled, still conscious but very loopy. Team Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Bakugo pass. Momo fell to her knees as tears of relief fell down her cheeks. I did it, she whispered. The observation room was full of cheering as they celebrated Momo's victory. Momo, Momo, Momo. Later on, when she walked in, she was surrounded by her friends and classmates, all of them cheering her on. Thank you, she said before meeting 3,630 SIXS eyes, the latter smiling widely at her and nodding in approval. She smiled back. Elsewhere. You've been looking at that picture a lot, Shigaraki Tamura. Shigaraki merely grunted as Kurojairi prepared a drink for their arriving guests. I guess you could say that he's inspired me. A knock on the door revealed Jiren, who introduced his newest cohorts. A burn man, a schoolgirl with manic eyes. Although their first meeting could have gone far better since they ended up trying to kill each other, were it not for Kurojairi, it would have gotten bloody. Still though, Shigaraki took a deep breath. The Midoriya boy had numbers, better quality numbers considering what he'd heard about the USJ and what he'd seen at Hosu. So he needed better players for his own party, regardless of them being hung up on Stain. Fine then, let's reload the save. You want to join? Fine, just know this, although Stain had his time, we'll be doing things slightly differently. So don't expect the same as if he was still here. Charisma stat don't fail me now. Oh, I see, how different. Different targets for one, because right now our biggest obstacle isn't All Might, it's him, Shigaraki said as he showed them a picture. Starting with his little successor, my own little player too. The new picture then decayed and crumbled away.
Men elo.
He then stood up and left the bar. Where are you going? Out. Feel free to do whatever you want. Ask Kurojairi if you want a drink. What will you be doing, Shigaraki Tamura? Kurojairi asked. Looking for answers. Morning of exam. All right, Midoriya. Aizawa began as they drove down the road. You already know what's up, so I don't need to do my usual logical ruses. Instead, I'll be brutally honest. There's going to be 1,200 students here this cycle, and all of them are going to be gunning for you. Izuku nodded as he strapped the last pieces of his armor and held his helmet in his hands. They were in a truck with an open space in the back, so he could put everything on. In front of him was Rex, who was also strapping in his last items. Ready to go, VOD? Rex asked as he holstered a pair of pistols. I'm ready, Izuku said as they felt the van stop. What about you guys? He directed towards the mindscape, various feelings of approval and eagerness swelling within him alongside the comforting presence of Nana and the slightest hint of support from Hikage. Thank you, he whispered as he put on his helmet and bowed his head. I am alive, but you are dead. I remember you, so you are eternal. Wish me luck, VOD. He prayed as the doors were opened. Aizawa, Nizu, and Tashinori met him outside the van, the latter already recovered from yesterday's debacle. Still can't believe that Momo had the audacity to poison him, didn't think she had it in her. It still gave him a chuckle just thinking about it. Even Nana was laughing about it inside the mindscape, though a part of Izuku wondered if Gran Torino knew. As if sensing his thoughts, Tashinori turned to him. Izuku, please don't tell Gran about what happened yesterday. Izuku chuckled and walked forward. Izuku? You didn't answer me. Izuku? Good morning, everyone. I'm Mara from the Hero Public Safety Commission. Yawn. Sorry about that. I haven't been able to sleep well lately due to some last-minute changes to the exam. The blonde said with a slight grin. Let's hope that this is just a one-off, right? Anyway, let's get this started. So, as you all know, we do these provisional license exams every cycle to give you students the opportunity to become better heroes by increasing your jurisdiction while also increasing the responsibility placed on you. As always, we have to see who's up to the challenge, which is why not all of you will gain licenses today. Mara then pointed towards the screen behind him, which showed a mock city that they would be practicing in. Right now, we have 1223 students taking the exam today. We aim to cut that number down to about half, so we'll be taking a 600 student cap after this first event. To begin, it'll be pretty simple. We'll be running an elimination-style event based around Capture the Flag. The screen then showed various spots where flags would be posted and the schools that would have control of those flags. Izuku narrowed his eyes in annoyance. His flag was right in the middle. We'll be surrounded. They planned this. More than likely, yes. He heard Nana say from the mindscape. Truth be told, there are many ways to succeed and many ways to fail. If you capture an opposing school's flag and successfully retrieve it to your base, that entire school is eliminated. Murmurs broke out as more eyes began to look towards Izuku, who stayed staring at the screen. Likewise, if the flag is saved before a complete capture, that school is still in play. Other methods of elimination can be the entire school being eliminated due to every student being eliminated, either through unconsciousness or elimination through these targets that you'll put on your body. Mera then delved deeper into the explanation of the targets and balls and some other things. Izuku paid attention as best as he could but was still nervous. There were some notable rules. Feeling a hand on his shoulder, he noticed Rex by his side, nodding in support. We're with you, VOD. To the end. Izuku nodded back and held onto Rex's hand as he bowed his head and took a deep breath. Now then, it's time to begin. You can begin preparations and planning, but we'll be allowing every school to go to their respective spots one by one. And once all schools are set, we'll leave an extra 15 minutes of prep time just for fairness. We'll go from lowest in number to highest. At least it's something. Izuku said to Nana. Nizu must have argued for it. I can very well imagine that they wanted you to go last. Either way, we'll be surrounded. Hey VOD, he said that we can start prep now, right? Yeah. How about some shock and awe? Izuku's head turned as he grinned under the visor. I like how you think, Rex. Izuku walked forward as the doors opened, revealing the city that had been created for them. It was basically a metropole, skyscrapers near the center, but with many pillars and open areas as well. In the center was what appeared to be the equivalent of a town hall. Izuku sighed once more before centering himself and calling upon One for All. Send them. Izuku. Nana admonished. No, they need to know. As the energy flowed through him, various students around him began to step back in slight fear and apprehension, practically tasting the power in the air. Legion, he roared. A green portal opened, and he extended his arms, widening it and pushing himself to the utter limit. That's as far as I can go, any more and I break. Forward. March. At first nothing happened, but then the other students could hear it, soft steps that landed in unison before it grew in power. Stomp, 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 and row by row they appeared, the clones marching in perfect unison with rifles at the ready on the shoulders. Rex took command and led them towards the city, not a single step lost. Many of the students took a step back at seeing what they thought was one boy now having the might of several schools combined. As the first company left, Izuku kept the portal open long enough for another small squad to appear. Their armor was now more advanced, and they carried themselves with much more intensity than before. They had grown since the last time he saw them. Good to see you again, Mandalore. As to you, Deltas, Izuku said as he closed the portal. Let's roll. The squad quickly closed ranks around Mandalore, and they marched forward to meet up with their brothers. Meanwhile, a few students murmured to each other, wondering if they were biting off more than they could chew. It doesn't matter, one loudly declared. We're still over 1,200 against 100 at most. We'll show this UA upstart what it means to be a hero. By the time they got there, brothers were already setting up defensive positions and were preparing for the upcoming skirmish. Inside, Rex had already set up a war room where scouts were coming back to report details about their surroundings. Mandalore, good to see you're here. I've already got scouts in the adjacent buildings keeping an eye on enemy movement. Comm Center has been established in the room next door, and we're getting reports of the other schools moving into position. Rex said as he and a few other leading clones gathered around a table which had a mock-up of the surrounding area. Good job, Captain. I'm going to get us some more reinforcements, as well as some extra firepower. We've got a room squared away to be an armory. Once you head down there, just grab some brothers and they'll organize. Do we have any open spaces, similar to a parking lot? Only open space is the front courtyard. Why? As it is, We're already sitting ducks, and our enemy will be united against us. Which is why we need to divide them by sowing dissension and making them panic. How so? Our plan will be twofold, Izuku said as he pointed toward the mock city that the clones had built up, with multiple flag markers already in place. While the majority of our forces stay behind to defend our flag, we'll be sending out squads to get their flags using the speeder bikes. That's pretty smart. Just wait till you hear this next part. The entire point of this challenge is elimination, which means that we don't have to worry about where the flags are taken, only that they've been eliminated. A silence permeated the run, only interrupted by the sound of clones scurrying about. That's devious as hell, VO'd. Not just that, I remember during the presentation that he said that eliminated schools would be announced, including who eliminated them. Izuku pointed out. And if it counts whose base it is, and not just who took the flag. Rex continued the train of thought. It'll split them up. They'll be so busy going against each other that we'll be able to pick them off. Izuku then pointed towards the taller buildings near them. I want snipers on the high-rises. Pair them with a scout to relay enemy positions. Rocket troopers in the middle of the buildings, and keep them hidden until we need them. We'll need to establish a perimeter of at least 2 blocks. That's where we'll have the majority of our forces. He then motioned towards the streets and outer areas. We should set up traps. As much as I would like it, it'll be unlikely that we don't get pushed back to our base, which means that we'll need to obstruct them as much as possible. That means that we'll have to establish fallback points, and we'll need plenty of cover. We don't have time to do a lot. Rex pointed out. Use grenades to blow holes into the ground, and see if there's anything in the streets that can be used at all. Dividers, debris, furniture. If it can be moved, it can be used as cover. One of the clones nodded and immediately headed out to relay the orders. Rex, are you any good on a speeder? Been practicing ever since it manifested, just in case? Good. Then I want you to lead the speeder squad, remember? Once you grab a flag, take it to another school. Right, what about you? I'll head to front lines and dash. That's a bad idea. Nana interjected from inside. Nana? I know that you want to fight alongside your brothers, but all it takes is one lucky shot, or one unfortunate mistake and you're down and everything you and the VOD have worked for will be down the drain. Izuku sighed deeply but nodded. She was right. What would be the best course of action then? You are their Mandalore. Lead and guide them all. At the same time, remember that your flag is also vulnerable. You should be its primary defense. That puts 2 valuable targets together, but I trust my brothers. Izuku whispered to himself. Turning to Rex, he told him the change. I will stay here to lead the VOD and protect the flag should anyone make it through. Then we'll stay here with you, VO. Boss said as the rest of the Deltas nodded in agreement. Izuku nodded back and headed out to the courtyard where there would be space to release the rest of the clones. Opening up the portal once more, Izuku strained himself heavily as clones began to rush out to take the necessary positions. Center yourself, Izuku. You still have time. Reduce the size of the portal. Okay. He sighed as the portal then shrunk a few feet. Eventually feeling himself about to give out, he shut the portal and let himself be guided back into the main room. A clone medic checked up on him and gave him some food and water, along with an energy drink. You're still good to fight, but rest up for now. We've got a few minutes left before it starts. Izuku nodded and took another deep breath to center himself. He idly noticed his knee bouncing from his nerves and set a hand on it to stop. VOD. A clone called out from the side, and he turned to face him. Yes, VOD? Everyone's in position. Scouts are reporting that all the schools are facing our way, and it looks like the majority of each school's population is on their way. All right. You know, the comms are all set up. Want to say a few words to us? Izuku stared at him for a bit, and then nodded. Standing and making his way to the comms room, he set up his comlink and began to speak. My brothers, this is your Mandalore speaking. Today, we fight not only for a provisional license, but so that we can continue saving those that need saving and deliver justice to those that deserve it. As I have said before, we fight together. Until the bitter end. Let our weapons strike true, and our wills not falter. Oya. 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 Aizawa sighed as he had to deal with another one of Joke's puns. It was even worse by the fact that Yagi and Nizu were enabling her by actually reacting to them. I got to say though, Shota, I'm honestly surprised at how you defended your student during that conference. I've never seen you so impassioned. Impassioned. Aizawa deadpanned to himself. And look, you even have a mini-you, she exclaimed, pointing at Pons, who was currently drinking a juice pouch. Pons raised an eyebrow at him, and Shota merely shook his head in exasperation. Joke continued to chuckle before she got a bit more serious. Either way, are you sure this was the best thing to do, Shota? Aizawa sighed. No, but there was no other choice. Joke nodded grimly, finally at least somewhat serious. Well, at least you told him about the crush. You did tell him about the crush, right? This time Joke looked at him completely flabbergasted. Shota, you gotta be kidding me, that's just irresponsi dash. He already figured it out by himself. I didn't have to tell him anything. He's smart like that. Shota interrupted her. Still though, he's one student against 1,200. What's he going to do? I believe that you are severely underestimating our student, Ms. Joke. Toshinori pointed towards the entrance. Why don't you look for yourself? Joke turned and her eyes widened as she saw an entire company of clones march toward the center of the city. A show of force, most likely to intimidate those around him. Nizu observed. When they got to the city center, they noticed how preparations were already being made by the clones. Scouts going out into the streets and buildings, clones building up defenses, more so once Izuku finally got there. This is remarkable. I know that they were very capable from the reports and the sports festival, but this? As you can see, Emmy, I didn't tell my student anything because I didn't have anything to worry about, Shota said as he continued to look forward. High praise from you, Eraserhead. I hope that it's not misplaced. Oya, oya, oya. They heard from the city center. The call surprised the heroine but invigorated the teachers. I find that you'll be very much surprised, Ms. Joke. Exams start. A clone took a deep breath as he clutched his rifle. Anytime now. Then they heard it, a soft rumbling in the distance. One of the squad leaders saw dust in the distance and used binoculars to see better. Here they come, he said before activating his comm, incoming from the north side. Hashtag we've got some from the south, too. Hashtag. Hashtag bogeys coming from the east. Hashtag. Hashtag west side. Incoming. Hashtag. Hashtag good luck, brothers. Hashtag. Men. Wait until they get closer, then unleash all the hell you can. Oya. The clone observed that many of the students looked simply uncaring, arrogant even. Absolutely dismissive of them. Good. Here they come. And finally they could hear them. Sup, bucketheads. Hope you guys like to play. Come on, give us a real challenge, will you? Look, they can't even muster the strength to fire at you, dash. Open fire. The first wave of blue bolts stunned a good amount of students, their bodies flopping down to the ground without much fanfare. The next wave of bolts were decidedly not stunners, which meant that they hurt a lot. Students started to fall left and right, a good amount with burns as the clones held the line. What the higa? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Fall Biak. The squad leader then activated his comm and relayed the news. North side's doing good. We've already got a good amount of them down. So far we're holding them back, but I don't know for how long. They severely underestimated us here. Good job. Keep at it as long as you can. What about the rest of you? Hashtag Southside is the same. We managed to push them back a lot actually, so much that we can't use stunners at this distance. Hashtag. Use the lower settings. Keep them back as far as you can. Hashtag Eastside is doing fine. Hashtag. Hashtag so are we on the West. They really didn't expect us to be this good. Huh? Hashtag. Excellent work, men, but don't get cocky. We've still got 1,200 students coming our way, and they won't stop anytime soon, Izuku said before pressing another button. Rex, are your boys ready? Hashtag ready to go, Mandalore. Hashtag. Then let's rock. Rex revved the bike, and he with his squad sped out into the northern streets. The enemy students, disoriented and scattered thanks to the clones, were helpless to do anything as the troopers passed them. They first made a loop around the city, to get a feel for the situation at each base they'd found. Then Rex gave the signal, and off they went. The squad split into two, and they picked up speed, heading for bases that had their flags in open areas. The students, Rex found, were woefully unprepared and weren't paying attention to anything. Seems that they're just waiting. They're probably so focused on crushing us that they forgot about everything else. Rex revved the bike and upped his speed. They certainly won't make that mistake twice. Easily blitzing through the area, the students not having made any defenses at all, they were able to grab the flag and speed by as the students panicked and flung attacks at random. What the hell is this? Where'd they come from? They took our flag. Too late. Rex thought as they left the area as quickly as they came in, already speeding towards a new base. Rocketing towards another base, they saw that this one was a bit more defended and Rex recognized the uniforms. Shiketsu. They're one of the biggest schools here. Then it's time we get some attention on them. Second squad's meeting heading the opposite way from us. They managed to grab 2 flags. Really? 2 for 1. Looks like some of the other schools are getting antsy. Makes sense. Let's push things along then. Moving forward, they were able to find another flag that was woefully underprotected, but moving along a bit more they found that Shiketsu was far more defended, although they were still lax since the majority of everybody's focus was on Izuku. Using the bike's blasters, they blasted through defenses and walls and scattered their enemies. In the middle of their base, they found the flag being defended by a large man who appeared to be a golem. Rex and the other trooper merely tossed the flags and confused, the golem man grabbed them. What the dash? 2 troopers then opened fire, the blasts making the golem step back and causing the flags to glow. 2 sirens rang out. West Kyoto and Hiroshima's flags have been captured at the Shiketsu base and therefore have been eliminated. For a moment, the fighting stopped as students from those schools were shocked by the announcement, many others turning towards Shiketsu. What the hell, Shiketsu? I don't dash. Wait, Shiketsu is the largest school here. They're trying to knock us out at the same time. No, wait, that's not dash. 2 more sirens. South Sapporo and Ryujin academies have been eliminated by Ketsubutsu through flag capture. Ketsubutsu 2? Screw the crush. Every school for themselves. No, wait, the Klana. Pressing the advantage, the clones opened fire once more and caught more students in the distraction. Joke's mouth was agape in disbelief as she saw the utter chaos the exam had turned into as schools were now fighting against each other before being picked off by clones. Nizu was cackling, dying of laughter while Toshinori chuckled. How? It's simple. That is Mandalore and we are the VOD. Pons began as he leaned back with his arms crossed. We'll use every advantage, every strategy, every tactic available to win. Also that we can save those that need saving and deliver justice to those that deserve it. That means one simple thing. Pons then turned to her, and she saw her reflection in his visor. If you're in our way, you'd better get out of it, or we'll just go right through you. Aizawa smirked. Mandalore. Reports from the northern line have come in. The enemy has fallen to chaos and are fighting each other with us getting the scraps. Same on the southern and western fronts. Eastern lines being pushed back. They're already at the second rally point. Call the rocket troopers. Izuku commanded. And use the traps to inhibit their progress. It's already done. We've got incoming. Boom. I've got you now, Yue. Almost immediately the enemy student came under fire from stun bolts, his body riddled with the impacts before he fell off the wall and to the floor below. That wasn't very smart. Izuku snarked as he went to the hole. Across the way he could see the eastern line being pushed back, multiple students from different schools causing all sorts of damage. Explosive sounds from the left caught his attention, and he turned towards the buildings where the rocket troopers were firing down at the streets, giving his brothers plenty of cover so that they could retreat. They're pushing through them. Reports are saying that we still have brothers fighting at the front lines, but too many are passing through. Boss said as the Deltas joined him. Then it's time we enter the fray. VOD-. Rex and the others are still going for flags. We need to hold out, but if we let them get to the building it'll become far too crowded, and it'll be too easy for them to just bring the building down on top of us. Boss paused but nodded in agreement. We're with you. Then let's go, Deltas. Izuku cried out as he leapt from the building and ran forward. They've broken through the front lines. A clone cried out as he kept firing his rifle. I've lost contact with comms. Another said as he ducked from an energy blast. There's too many of them. We've got to hold them here. A concussive blast breached through the defenses and sent a clone spinning before he hit the ground harshly, a metaclone immediately coming by to help him.
Stand fast.
Another said before crying out in pain as another blast impacted his shoulder, sending him careening into the concrete. Medic. Up top, a few students with projectile quirks were firing on the clones before blaster fire from behind the clones hit them, knocking them off the rooftops. From behind, Mandalore came firing his own blaster before leaping over some debris and ducking into a roll. As soon as he came out, he fired on a student, causing them to fall and then be stunned by another clone. Another student came running towards him, a weird energy manifesting itself around his fists, ready to fight only for Mandalore to shoot him and throw him off balance. Spinning and grabbing the boy's costume, he then slammed him into the ground headfirst, knocking him out. The Deltas were right behind him, giving quick support and taking out some students themselves. Boss quickly punched a student in the head, disorienting him before kneeing him in the gut and stunning him. Fixer was able to shoot multiple people before being tackled by another student. The two rolled for a bit before Fixer got him into a chokehold, giving enough time for a clone to stun him. Scorch was quite simply having too much fun blowing people up with mini explosions. He'd been tinkering with his explosives, and now knew how to really pack a punch. And Sev? Well, you wouldn't really hit a girl, would you? A female student asked after being defeated by Sev in hand-to-hand combat. The hammer of justice is unisex, he said before stunning her. Well, at least you stunned her, Scorch said as he idly kicked some debris. Incoming. The group turned and saw more enemy students arrive, the majority of them Shiketsu students. Shiketsu attack. Izuku grimaced under his helmet before motioning for them to fall back. Troopers, fall back. Go, go, go. Let's move. Machine gunners, give us cover. Two clones quickly came up with their rotary guns, the flurry of bolts giving their brothers the cover needed to retreat. A large concussive explosion rocked the area in front of them, and the clones were knocked off their feet.
Men Elo.
A Shiketsu student said, energy surging from his hands and legs. He was large in size, with a bandolier and a shoulder pauldron. In his right hand, he carried a hammer with a long handle. Face me. Izuku sighed. It's always something. Author. Thank you everybody for your continued support and patience. I'm so glad that you've been with me so far. I just graduated my most recent training and am now in the last part of it. Unfortunately, my time will be limited, but rest assured I will do my best to continue. Now, some slight omax. Who was left in charge? Cody sighed as he signed the 35th form for the day. For some unknown, ridiculous reason, Nizo had left him in charge of UA while he was gone. He'd thought that the other teachers would make a fuss about it, but it turns out that every single one of them was absolutely relieved and did their best to push as much work as possible on him. He let his helmet hit the desk as he received another incident report from the training grounds, and he thought that the VOD were full of idiots. Author. I'll make that I'll expand into a full one-shot later, but this was the inspiration for Momo poisoning All Might. As Bakugo's limp body fell and was held up by All Might's hand, he realized that there was still one student unaccounted for. I did not wish to believe that young Midoriya would leave young Bakugo behind, but it seems that their hatred of each other really does run that deep. He could understand Midoriya's hatred of him. Being quirkless wasn't easy, and All Might had cruelly and regretfully destroyed his dreams. But leaving behind a partner was just inexcusable. Although, considering what happened in the sports festival, All Might still shuddered at seeing Bakugo's brutalized body, the boy still receiving blows even when unconscious. There is a great darkness in that boy. I hope that he can overcome it. Yagi. He heard from behind, and he gulped. Yagi. Not All Might. Midoriya really didn't like him. Turning, he saw the boy in armor, more than likely created from the week of preparation they'd given him. You're giving me a handicap? It's just to make things fair dash.
No.
You know what, fine. Give me the week, I'll take it and I'll prove you wrong. This is between you and me. Letting go of Bakugo's body and leaping over to land in front of the boy, he stared at him with regret, while Midoriya glared at him in disdain. We don't have to do this, he pleaded, trying to get the boy to see reason. Sure we do, Midoriya replied as he took out a gun and blasted him point blank with a sonic cannon. The resulting shockwave blew out all the windows and forced All Might to his knees, blood dripping down his nose. Seeing the blood, All Might quickly stood up and grabbed the gun, crushing it and knocking Midoriya down. Young Midoriya, be reasonable. You know what I have to do, he said as he extended his hand out. What you have to do? Izuku mockingly asked while secretly connecting something to the light post behind him. Grabbing the hand, it electrified and began shocking the symbol of peace, forcing him to his knees as Izuku then grabbed his head, making sure to do the maximum damage possible. All Might screamed in agony. The lights in the entire city began to flicker, and those in the observation room could only watch in horror. Ah. You say that you have to do this for my benefit, but I know the truth. The Commission's putting you up to this because I'm an embarrassment. Because I do what they can't, Izuku said, relentless in his attack on All Might. You're no symbol, you're just their lapdog. All Might growled as he swung, the edges of his knuckles breaking the device that connected to the lamppost while his forearm brushed against the armor, driving Izuku back. Rearing back, All Might struck Izuku, who was barely able to block, and was sent flying into a van. It doesn't matter what the Commission wants, I'm just trying to save you, All Might said as he walked forward. Really? Izuku chuckled mirthlessly. Then I wonder how you treat your enemies. Engines engaged as fire burst out of his feet, launching him towards the tossed him away. Quickly catching himself, Izuku engaged a thruster on his fist and sent a haymaker towards All Might, who was actually sent to the ground. He's still underestimating me. Good. The two continued to fight, Izuku pushing All Might into the buildings, the latter only half-heartedly fighting back. Tired of the blows, however, as they crossed through an apartment complex, All Might pushed him through a wall before leaping through the side of the complex and into the air, dragging Midoriya with him. Reaching the apex of his jump, he put his fists together and slammed them down on the armor and spiking Midoriya through the skeleton of a building in a construction site. Midoriya quickly recovered and was forced to dodge as multiple I-beams came crashing down on him. He was pushed back by the flick of a finger into a pile of I-beams, with one falling over. All Might leaped forward, intent on finishing the fight, only for Izuku to stomp one end of the beam, causing it to jab into All Might's chest and making him gasp for air. Kicking the I-beam and launching All Might past a wrecking ball, Izuku cut it with some projectiles and then used the ball and chain as an oversized mace, slamming it on top of All Might and cratering the ground. Spinning around, he swung the ball into All Might, sending him crashing into a building and out of its rooftop. Quickly regaining his bearings, All Might grabbed a sharp piece of metal, and with quick aim he launched it at the chain as Izuku was spinning the ball, cutting it and sending it towards him. Grabbing the chain with one hand as the ball flew past him, he flung it back towards Izuku, who dodged out of the way and then began to use steamrollers as boxing gloves. The two opponents met in a flurry of blows, with Izuku knocking All Might down before the larger man blocked, shattering the rollers. Grabbing Midoriya's face, he held him in place, barely any damage to his uniform, let alone himself. Young Midoriya, this is idiotic. Slamming his palm into his chest, Midoriya was sent flying over the buildings, back to where they started. Leaping after him, he then landed on top of Midoriya, causing even more damage to the armor before picking him up and punching him, shattering it and sending him flying back. I know I broke ribs, young Midoriya, he said as Izuku struggled to get up and glared at him once more. Don't make me do this. Uncaring, Izuku charged. Dodging a blow, he punched All Might before extending his hand and pressing a button, launching a caustic chemical into All Might's eyes. All Might blindly swung, not wanting to unleash a full-powered smash to not cause irreparable damage. Izuku pressed his advantage and placed a bomb on All Might's chest, the latter's eyes only just recovering, the resulting explosion sending them both flying. Izuku got up to his knees and stared at the fire, knowing that the end was close. Almost there. All Might's large figure appeared through the smoke and Izuku was punched through another car. Grunting in pain as he grasped at his shoulder, Izuku remained on his knees as All Might walked towards him. "What are you doing? Are you trying to make me hurt you so bad that you can't be a hero at all?" All Might asked in confusion. "Oh, you won't do that." Izuku chuckled. "Now." All Might turned, finally realizing that Midoriya and Bakugo must have finally been able to work Toge. "Aya Aga." All Might choked as pain lanced through his side. Slowly turning, he saw a large metal spike right where his old wound was, the other end connected to Midoriya's suit. The latter was glaring at him, but with tears in his eyes. "You really think that Bakugo would work with me? Or me, with him?" All Might could feel something being injected to him, and already his body was sluggish and unresponsive. He could barely breathe, and fell to his hands and knees as Midoriya stood up. "It wasn't easy to do, All Might, but in the end, I had to do what was necessary," Izuku said as he reared his fist back and punched All Might in the face, blood splattering out and staining the streets. "You're feeling it now, aren't you? What you've been hiding from these last few years, what the rest of us lowly mortals live with every day," Izuku said as he panted harshly from the exertion. "Your own mortality." All Might's bleeding and bruised face looked at him in slight shock and horror as steam began to rise off his body. He used my weakness. "Don't worry, you won't die. After all, the world still needs its symbol of peace," Izuku spat out. "Young Midoriya, wait." Izuku merely stared at him before kicking him across the face. Meanwhile, the teachers could only stare at the two in shock and alarm at how far the fight had gone. Many of the students were also observing in fear at what Izuku was now shown to be capable of doing. The light of a lamppost blinded All Might's eyes before Izuku's visage covered it. Breathing heavily and practically paralyzed, he was helpless as Izuku picked him up by his costume. "But I didn't have to go easy on you. A stronger mix, a different binding agent, and endeavor would be the new number one," he said as he lifted him up to his knees. All Might actually looked at him in fear as his form started to deflate, half strong, half skinny. "I want you to remember that. I wanted to remind you to stay out of my way. In all the years to come, in your most private moments, I want you to remember the one quirkless man who beat you." Izuku finished as he glared straight into the older man's eyes. Finally, he applied the cuffs and let him go. Team Midoriya and Bakugo win. Author. "So yeah, I had this idea and then I applied to win Momo Poison's All Might. Thank you all for your support. Until next time." Again, hope you guys got the references I put in this chapter. Chapter 20. Christmas Message and Teasers. "Well," Melissa said as she motioned towards the pile of broken crystals, "I've tried to use a multitude of foci, but every single one has been unable to handle the strain." She sighed in frustration and shook her head. "Maybe I should just give up on this," Izuku hummed as he idly fingered the crystal under his shirt. For some reason, "Hey," he called out, catching her attention. "Try it with this." He held out the black crystal, even now still appearing to absorb light around it. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I can't guarantee that it'll survive. Trust me." "All right." And All Might's arm fell, as his strength failed him. All for One's defeat was nothing more than a hollow victory. Not with what he'd lost. As his arm fell, a hand swiftly grabbed onto his wrist and All Might jerked in surprise as he saw the figure next to him. Izuku smiled weakly at him, bloody and bruised, but alive. The symbol of peace should raise his fist one last time. Shouldn't he, Beer? Toshinori trembled as he let his fist be raised by his son, before quickly hugging the boy. As the dust settled, the world saw an emaciated All Might hold on to the boy who was quickly making waves in Japan's history. Now, it's your turn." Izuku sat in front of his friends, his newest scars aching, but after everything that happened, he definitely knew who he could trust. Ochako, Tenya, Yuga, Kyoka, and Momo. He began, the group huddled around each other, all of them glad that each other was safe. They had gone through a lot since the summer camp. "I brought you all here because I trust all of you the most. You've shown your loyalty and dedication to the clones, to my brothers, and to me." Izuku looked each one of them in the eye. "It is time that I share a deep part of myself. Listen closely, as I tell you the story of One for All." Momo walked behind Izuku and was flabbergasted at the multitude of clones who saluted her as she walked by. "Commander." "Sir." Izuku had long ago explained that "sir" was a term of respect amongst the clones, regardless of gender. It represented leadership and was a sign of reverence, appreciation, and respect. "Still, they shouldn't salute me. I'm not a part of the VODE," Momo murmured as they headed down the halls. "It doesn't matter to them. It's a sign of respect," he reminded her. "They know what you went through for them during the summer camp in Kamino." They finally stopped at a door that led to one of UA's newest vehicle bays. Loyalty means everything to the clones. The door opened before them and Momo's eyes widened as she saw Wolf in front of a company of clones. In his hand was a new helmet, with a stylized wolf's head on the forehead and a black streak crossing over the right side of the face. Her signature bang. "Company," Wolf began. "Attention. Step. Step." The clones gave a sharp center face and remained at attention. "Izuku, you already know my plans for Ochako and the others. This is for you," he said before smiling and pointing his head towards the company. "Go on. They've been waiting for you." Momo walked through the company, admiring the new designs on the helmets, and now that she noticed it, some of them had taken liberties with their armor. A few had made red markings on their chest plates, not enough to make the V, but they were the same color as her costume. As soon as Wolf and the guys knew that you were out of the hospital, they got to work. Momo smiled and turned back toward Wolf, his scarred visage smiling softly at her. "Paint job's a bit crude, but we think it gets the idea across." She palmed the helmet, idly tracing the paint. "Glad to have you back, Commander." "Wolf, thank you, but you don't have to call me Commander," she replied. "Sure thing, Commander." Toshinori fell to his knees, much to the surprise of the students surrounding him as he stared at the figure in front of him. "Master Nana?" "Toshinori," she whispered as she floated toward him. Her hands came to his face and she held him gently, the man silently weeping from a touch he'd not felt in decades. "My beautiful son, what's going on between you and All Might? How is it that he chose you? And what for?" Bakugo snarled. Izuku merely raised his brow. "Well? Answer me. Why?" "What? What do you mean, why?" "I deserve to know dash." "Deserve to know?" Izuku scoffed. "How can you be so delusional, so arrogant as to believe that you deserve anything from me?" Bakugo stayed silent. "I've already told you before, leave me alone. I don't owe you anything." Izuku turned his back and walked away. "You don't mean anything to me anymore." Tossing his broken helmet to the ground, Mandalore glared at the broken man only a few feet away. Overhaul. He'd caused so much harm, so much pain. He had hurt his daughter in the most unimaginable of ways. And now, he was vulnerable. Mandalore groaned as he stood up, the last shreds of his broken armor falling off his body. Grabbing the dark saber, he ignited it and approached him. "You won't hurt her ever again, Chisaki." Mandalore's eyes glowed yellow as he raised the blade and struck. Author. Again, thank you to everyone for their continued support. Hopefully I can post the newest chapter sometime in January. Also, shout out to my newest beta, CT 2864, who'll be helping me out as we move forward.